God, guys. So, yesterday I tried to do a broadcast while I was getting ready for the party that I was going to. Um, and I ended up being, so I had this great idea. I was going to start sipping wine, and I just started drinking wine. So I'm not really used to it yet. Um, but I had this great idea. I was going to like start drinking wine and getting ready. And, but first of all, how many people is this public? I see there's two people in here, but I can't tell if this is public or not. Oh, please be public. I really don't want to have to fucking restart this. There's only two people watching. One sec. I just want to make sure everything is copacetic before I go into stories. One sec. Didn't get a notification. Okay. Huh. I wonder where that is. Just discover it through my sub box. So you see it. It is live. Okay, you do see it. All right. Well, whatever. Yeah, I see it on my page too. So that's so weird. I wonder why it's not. Maybe because I've done so many broadcasts in a short period of time. Whatever. We're here now. All right. So I had a great idea yesterday. I was like, girl, do you know what I should do as I'm getting ready for the party? I should drink. I should drink, some wine. And if you were here in the broadcast yesterday, the girl, like we started, I really started on an okay / positive note. And then girl, like throughout the broadcast, I got drunker and drunker and drunker and drunker and drunker. And I just like lost track of what I was trying to say. And so I talked about a lot of stuff, and I don't think that stuff was like, unnecessary or that you didn't get anything from it or anything, but like, oh, I was tracing this. That's what I was doing before that. But like I didn't really finish a lot of thoughts. And so I wanted to finish thoughts because girl, like I was way too lit. And I learned a lesson. I learned that wine is very strong. I was not expecting it to be so strong, but girl, the wine was so strong. So I went to a party last night and I didn't get back until like 9 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty intense. I was in the jacuzzi for a really long time. God, the moment I got into the jacuzzi, so I told you guys yesterday, the party I went to was like a sexy kind of kinky party. But it was like someone's birthday party. So like, it wasn't quite as extreme as people are thinking, but like, it was pretty sexually open. And so I went into the pool and I'm naked, and like almost immediately as I get into the jacuzzi, someone's like, "Oh, aren't you Cat Black?" And bitch, I'm naked. I mean, I have bottoms on, but I'm naked. And girl, listen, now y'all know how I feel about being recognized, but bitch, listen, I'm at this sexy party. It was hosted by one of the guys that's dommed me before. And I'm like in the like flirty, like let's meet people mood. And like I set myself down into the water and oh my God, aren't you Cat Black? I wanted to die. I wanted to literally leave my body. I don't think wine says. I ended up staying in the hot tub for most of the night, though. Those people ended up leaving. There's like some stories to tell there, but it's not that interesting. Honestly, I came so late, and then I ended up like being so drunk. And I haven't been in a jacuzzi for a while, so I was like really excited at the idea of being in a jacuzzi. So I just kind of parked there. And then I heard all this other shit happen, like someone was getting suspended from The Roof by Cellophane and shit. And I was like, I missed all of it. I missed all of it. Um, but it was fun. It was fun. It's a very exclusive party, and so people told me like, yeah, he's disinvited like a ton of people, so that's why it's so small. But like the place that happened was like an after hours that happens in LA all the time that I've heard of but never been to. And I ended up meeting the owner. I ended up staying after hours actually because me and this guy were talking. Um, and so the owner was there. I feel like the owner is like a right wing guy though, like some because he like mentioned someone being a bleeding heart liberal in like a negative context. I mean, I say that too, but he was a Bernie bro. He had like this Bernie like bracelet on. Whatever. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. So part of me wanted to redo this broadcast because when I was checking comments on the videos, someone left like a really angry message about how when I was talking about Black men, this was like me trying to get, my white, like this person left a comment being like, oh, you're just trying to basically impress white people and you're talking about this because of white people and you're, da 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 da. And then he says something along the lines of you're sabotaging a relationship with a Black man. And that kind of struck a chord with me. And so that's why we're here to talk about this because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I like Black men. Ooh, that rhymed. I like Black men. I'm attracted to Black men. Also, let's do a quick little test, okay? I probably shouldn't do this, and you would think that I would have learned my lesson by now, but let's do a quick little test. Let's quickly look at who likes me on Tinder, okay? 1,083 likes on Tinder, right? Now we're gonna scroll through and look at the men like me. And you'll see that it's men of various races, but let's count how many Black men, okay? Let's go through, and this is 1,000, okay? See men of multiple backgrounds, multiple this and this and that. Oh, there's another one, Okay, I'm gonna keep scrolling. We're just gonna keep going. Oh, there's another one. Okay. There's another one, all right. I think is he Black? There's Black people there. Mm-hmm. Ooh, there's 3 in a row. So I get liked by everyone. Like people of various backgrounds and racial this and racial that like me and follow me, or like me and swipe on me. But it would be very silly to say that most of them were Black, and so because part of so there was a time where when I was going through Tinder. So when I go through my matches, right, I do have Black men who do like me, right? But it's a very small amount of people, right? And yes, I have Tinder Gold. And so of that group of people, right, it's already a small amount of people. And then there's like, okay, so of these people, who am I attracted to? And I swiped right. See, I've talked about this before, but here's been my experience. And I think I've done a broadcast when this was literally the case, right? So you guys, I think I showed you guys actually live one day where like I was on Tinder and I got a message from this really handsome Black guy that I had matched with, right? And so I matched with him, and what has been really common for me on Tinder is Black men matching with me and then not reading my profile. right? And so I've kind of become really accustomed to sending the message, hey, have you read my profile? And so often the answer to that question is no, I didn't read it. And oh my God, I'm so fucking sorry. Or I'm not into that faggot shit. I'm not into that gay shit. And that's just kind of been my fucking experience, right? Now, I find that the people who criticize me a lot about not dating hella black guys are not black and transgender. They're usually black and cis. You know, black, cis, usually straight, right? Usually people who criticize me and who I date is like, it's usually not people who actually know what it's like to be a black trans woman. And so they don't put up with all the various shit that I put up with, where I'm connecting with someone who I'm attracted to, who is now suddenly attacking me because even though I communicated very clearly who I was, they didn't read my profile, or they were just swiping because they looked at, my thing or whatever, which all men do, okay? I'm not going to act like all men of all races don't do that. A lot of them do. But in my experience, when it comes to the white men who've done that, they just unmatch me. Yeah, sometimes I'll get a shitty message. But like, if we were to compare the amount of white men who I've matched with to the amount of black men I've matched with, I've gotten a lot of very combative messages from black guys, whereas white guys will just unmatch. And I've talked to you guys on here about sort of my trials and tribulations of me trying to date black men. When I first moved out here, there's this guy that I connected with on Bumble, actually. He was really, really handsome. He had locks. He was just so fucking good. He was so fucking fine. And, he was clearly the sort of person who, he, you can just tell that he's the kind of guy who is more into white women usually. And so, we went on one date, but it was so the first guy, I'm just gonna say his name because who the fuck is gonna figure out. So his name was Waleed, right? Waleed was, this really cool, like, burner guy. He worked in set design. He was a really sort of talented, artistic guy. But he traveled a lot and da. And so, when he was in town, he was like, he asked me out basically by being like, oh, I'm going to get dinner right now. Would you like to come with me, sort of thing. There was not a lot of pre-planning. It was like, hey, I'm in town. You want to get dinner with me? And so we went and we got dinner, and it was a decent date. It wasn't like amazing or whatever, because, I had to kind of get my shit together real quick. But we went on this little date and we ate, and and it was nice. And he did kiss me. And I think I came here and I talked to you guys about how it was nice to kiss somebody whose lips actually fit mine. And then I never heard from him again. And this is someone who, in our conversations before this, we've talked very extensively about kink. We've talked very extensively about sex. And I'm always very clear about that really not being a thing I'm willing to jump into. I mean, obviously, recently, I sort of made an exception, but that was only because I know I'm going to continue to see this person. But like, I'm just not really someone who jumps into shit. And so I think that for a lot of men in general, that's like it's like a deal breaker of sorts, because they, a lot of them just want sex, and that's fine, but it's not what I'm looking for. So I always try to communicate to people that, like, if that's your focus, we are wasting each other's time. It's like, let's just do each other, let's just do each other a favor and just not do it. So anyway, that was my first dating thing after my ex of dating a black guy, right? I've had these two guys recently, and I told you guys both their stories. I'm actually seeing one of them tonight. Both of these two guys, they're both black, they're both actors, they're both attractive, they're both talented, and they're both very, very hard to get a hold of. Very, very hard to get a hold of. And, so when I talk about this, I'm only comparing it to literally everyone else I know, literally everyone else I'm dating. Like, I'm really not used to having to jump through the amount of hoops that I have to jump through in order to connect with these men. Right now, maybe it's an actor thing. I don't know. Maybe they're all busy because they're acting or whatever. Maybe, but I have like a hard time buying it. It's like whenever someone says that they're so busy, it's hard for me I want to know why and how, because it's almost hard for me to believe that you're just busy all day and you never, get to look up. I don't know if that's necessarily how that is. Anyway, so I told the story really quickly about the guy who I was supposed to go on a date with this past Wednesday. I called him D in the last video, and I'll just give you a quick little summary of what that happened. This is a guy who I connected with him on like a bunch of different dating sites, much like the guy I'm seeing tonight. And he asked me out. It was like, hey, I saw you at the bar you're always at. Let's maybe go and get a drink sometime, or let's go. He asked me out, right? And then he stopped really responding, and then the messages slowed down, and then it was this weird thing, and I kept contacting him. I wasn't hearing from him, and so then we eventually did get in contact with each other, and we did start to have sort of a vibe and a thing. And so we agreed to go get drinks this past Wednesday. But come Wednesday, he has this mysterious, complicated, convoluted thing where his friend is sick and he needs to be taken to the hospital. And maybe that's true. I still don't know. If it's not, I don't really know. But basically that's what happened, where friend had to go to the hospital, and so we couldn't go on our date, right? And so I was like, well, fuck that. I'm gonna find something to do. I'm not gonna sit around and wait for this man. I'm gonna go out and have myself a good ass time. And I told you guys that that's when I went to a bar, and I found that there was this Google event happening, and I saw so many people that I knew, because I know about a bunch of people at Google, right? And so I decided to go to a bar of I know this guy who works at a bar that's near the area, who I also have not talked to a lot, and I thought, well, I'll just pull up at his bar. Let's just be messy like that. And so I pull up to I go to the bar. He's not there. I start to sort of I'm drunk at this point, and I'm like, let me text this guy. And so he texts me and tells me that his friend had friends who came into town. Apparently his friend is like Swedish or something, and a bunch of people like came from Sweden, and he had to take his friends out to go get drinks and shit, because he was his friend was supposed to do that, but then now he has to do it, right? And I'm at the bar and I'm drunk at this point, and I'm really annoyed. And then he tells me, but I wanted to see if if I could come over real quick, come by where you are and get a quick little kiss before I go home. And I was really drunk when I was telling this story, so I don't really think that I quite explained like all the various ways that made me feel, because that aggravated me, because it made me think, okay, so like, wait, what do you think about me? Like, what is it about me that made you think, oh, sure, okay, I flaked on her, I canceled on her, I made her set aside, her plans to see me, and now she's out on her own. And so she's gonna want to come and give me a kiss. You know, it like fucked with me a little bit because I was just like, wait a minute, but like, why would I do that? Like, what is it about me? What is it about me specifically that makes it seem like that would be something I would want to do with you? Because at the end of the day, you fucked my night up. Like no shade, you fucked my night up. You know, I had all these plans. I'm the sort of person where like, and I need to get over this, but I'm the sort of person where I will really build energy toward doing a thing. Um, you know, like it's hard for me to get very excited about going out and doing this and doing that and then it not happening. It's hard. Like, I don't like putting myself in that position where I've built up all this energy to do something and now I can't do it because someone else decided they didn't want to show up. Like, I don't really want to be in that situation, right? And so I was really upset. And I just like, so does this guy, and mind you, part of the issue that I had with this guy was I had to really explain to him, which maybe I should stop doing this. I had to really explain to him, like, look, because all he wanted to talk a lot about sex and kink and shit. I bet if I read our text messages, let me see what I've been texting him. Like, I mean, so I showed him his hair, my hair, and he was out on a trip, and I said we should hang when you get back. He was like, okay, when you get back. When I said when you get back, he said Monday night, and he says, love your lips and curves and that collar. I mean, choker. It looks nice on you. Haha, thinks it's my style. So sexy. Those lips, those da da da. My eyes just keep going. Just like he keeps talking. He's very clearly very sexually interested in me, which is fine. Fine. But I'm not the sort of person who's gonna jump into fucking. That's not me. Because part of that for me is like I'm not excited by that. You know, like when a man is like, oh, I want to fuck you, I don't listen to that and I think, oh, that's, you know, because first of all, I talked about this before. I have a couple of feelings about this. My first one being men are very easy. You know, you can read that as misandrist or whatever you want, you know, but men are very easy. And so I don't really look at a man wanting to have sex with me as like anything for me to be like proud of, I'm not, I mean, thank you. But at the same time, like, is that an accomplishment that a man wants to fuck me? Not so much. And I've also had a lot of sex. And so it's like, there's several layers to this where like, I'm just not, that's not me. Right. And so anyway, that was always an issue of mine. And so I made it clear that if, you know, we ever do, because we live really close to each other. Right. And so I made it really clear that if we ever do go in that direction, like it's going to be after we've had a lot of getting to know each other and, you know, feeling it out and stuff, because I'm already sort of like skeptical, honestly, of whether or not him and I would get along. And so we would have to sort of take our time to really get to know each other, sort of thing. So anyway, so I was really annoyed with that guy. And the conversation basically ended with me being like, I'm not going to fucking chase you. Because I hadn't really been saying that to him. I mean, I kind of said it to him. I did at one point tell him I'm not going to chase you. And, you know, he was like, okay, well, I'll be dominant and I'll contact you and you won't have to do that. You know, da 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 da. I don't want you to chase me. I want to chase you. I'm the dom. I'm the dom. I'm the dom. And it's been 3 days and I have not heard from him. You know, so, and that was after weeks of me chasing him and shit. And I'm not going to text him and be like, hey, how are you? I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to fucking do it. And I think the reason why him asking me to get a kiss really bothered me is like, I'm trying to work against a lot of, I guess you could say, the biases that I have had about Black men, because I've put it this way. I've had a lot of Black men express interest in me. Okay. But the vast majority of them have not expressed interest in taking me out on a date, respecting me, getting to know me, anything like that. It's always been come over at my place at midnight and, suck my dick. And men in general are like that. Men in general, I mean, if they can get away with that, they would. And I know that, but I don't really like, so I go on a lot of dates and, I'm very used to not that. I'm very used to not that. I'm very used to men wanting to take me out, wanting to go on a date with me, wanting to be seen with me. I'm not really at this point in my life. There was a time where that wasn't the case. At this point in my life, I don't do the whole come over to my place at midnight and suck my dick. I don't do that. I don't do that. And so, it's definitely a lot. It's very aggravating for me to really want to have a connection with Black men and then have them treat me like that. It sucks. It really fucking sucks. Because I would rather that not be the case, but it is what it is, right? So anyway, there's this other guy who I know I started calling Shamar in my last video, and I'm going on a date with him tonight. And so I want to bounce this off of you guys because I don't know how to fucking feel about this, to be honest. So Shamar is also a guy that I've had to chase. I've had to chase him a lot. I've had to, beg for his fucking attention. He's so busy, like a lot of these men say they always are. But I bought it, I mean, and I guess Shamar is different than D because I've actually seen Shamar's work. Not that it was good, like, let's not get it twisted. It wasn't good, but he works and I know he works. And so I think because I've seen his work, I'm a little bit more willing to be like, okay, you're actually working on shit. Whereas with D, I haven't seen his work. And so it's hard for me to like believe that he is actually as busy as he says. So anyway, so when me and Shamar went on our first date, it went pretty good. I mean, I talked to you guys yesterday. He's a very sexy guy. And I think he's also the kind of guy who's really used to people finding him sexy. And so I think he kind of uses that a lot, which is whatever. But he's just like one of these guys who just everything about him is so put together. He's just really good looking. He's just very charming. And interestingly enough, I found out that I have a mutual friend with him, with actually this guy who I met at VidCon, who him and I have always sort of had like a weird sort of vibe thing where we're not really dating, but like he takes me out. He's taken me out on dates before. But a lot of that was he was going through a divorce and, I was going through my breakup and we just really wanted to connect with each other in that way because we were going through shit. And so when Shamar went on this date with me, he, was like, let's go get a drink, right? That was his suggestion. Let's go get a drink. And so then I find this really cute little speakeasy. I love speakeasy bars. It's basically what I live in LA. And I'm at the bar. We meet each other. We sit down, and Shamar. And this was the night where like my hair was half done. I think I told the story to you guys. My hair was half done, and so I had like a bandana over my head, and I had like these boots on and this floral dress, and I looked like a pirate. And I was like really insecure and everything. That you're doing too fucking much when you're supposed to be, doing your hair, and instead you go on a date. Like that should have been a sign. Anyway, so we're at this bar, but Shamar says very, very quickly, he's like, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to drink tonight." Which is fine, but we met at a bar. And so obviously I'm thinking, oh, this guy's, and I already had a drink because I was waiting for him. I'm obviously thinking, oh, this guy and we're gonna have drinks. It's gonna be a good time. We'll be flirty, whatever. That's the assumption that I kind of had, and And no, not at all. He just, sat there and we had a good conversation. And, he's a nice guy and everything, but he didn't drink anything. And so we ended that last date with him saying, okay, well, next time let's do dinner, because I actually understand not wanting to drink. I do get that. Like, sometimes you're just not in the mood for it. I get it. Look, I drink a lot, so I know that sometimes you're not, your mood is just not there. So I wasn't judging him for not wanting to drink, right? But so in the time leading up to going on this date, at the to get dinner, I decided to ask him this morning. I was like, so do you think you're going to eat anything? And dinner was his idea. He says, do you think you're going to eat anything? He said, probably not. And I guess part of my issue with this is like, I don't really like eating. I mean, look, I don't really like eating in front of people like that. Like, if you're not eating and I'm eating, that's just really awkward to me. I don't want someone to watch me eat, It's one thing when we're both eating and our heads are both in our fucking, are both in our laps. But like, no, he's not eating. And so also on that date, and I forgot that to mention this, he did reveal to me that he recently was seeing somebody, and apparently she moved back to her hometown. Oh, not moved back. She visited back. She lives in Colorado. She visited in Colorado, and everything was good with them. But when she went to Colorado, she reconnected with her ex, even though that they're both poly and all that stuff. It just kind of ended up being weird, and so he's kind of like emotionally working through a lot of that shit. And so, of course, when men, so I have a thing where I've noticed where men will say that they're so unavailable, they're so unavailable, they're so unavailable. And then I'll go on a date with them and they'll tell me this full story about this relationship that they're currently in. And of course, when you're trying to maintain relationships, there's only so much time in the day. But for me, it's like, so, and it's usually in the context of someone breaking up with someone. Because I have a thing where I start to recognize when men say they don't want to date, or when they say that say that they're busy, maybe this sounds paranoid, but a lot of times it's not that they don't want to date. It's not that they're busy. It's that they don't want to spend time with you. Because they don't want to spend their time with you. And so, and you guys know me, I'm very like, look, I mean, fuck, I'm looking at my calendar right now. I have dinner with him tonight. I'm going to an event tomorrow. I'm totally blacking out of all social media on Tuesday. Then I've got a date with the 6ix9ine guy. Then I got a date with Soldier. Then I got a date with this new guy that I started talking to. And then I'm going to the birthday party of the guy that I'm starting to see, which is really what I wanted to tell you guys about, but I didn't get to yesterday. So bitch, I'm busy. I'm blessed, booked, and unbothered. So I don't want to waste my time with people who don't want to be around me. And so thinking about this today, I was like, so why does he even want to see me? Like, what? Because I don't. So is it weird to me? Let me ask you guys this. Do you guys think it's weird to go on a date that's like, so again, dinner was his idea. Is it weird to, but I don't know, maybe this is how the kids are doing it these days. I don't, maybe this is how things are, I think it's very weird. I think it's really, really fucking weird. And I don't know why you would invite me out, and like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Because I guess it's like, so what are you getting out of this? Like, what are you getting out of this? Like, I guess it's like he just wants to meet me, which is sweet, but like, I don't know. Like, I almost want to like say, so what can we do that would help you have a better time? Because I don't know if it's this. Like, if this isn't the best time, the best way that we can spend time with each other, let's find something else to do. Like, we don't have to go to dinner or get drinks. We can go to a show. We can go to the movies. We can do a lot of other shit. But I know that he just wants to spend time with me. And for what that is, I don't fucking know. I'll be real and say that, like, I've definitely gone on a lot of dates with men where I basically end up being their fucking therapist. And I'm not saying that men haven't been that on my dates as well. I mean, I haven't been that with men on my dates as well, because I definitely have. But I don't know. It's just I don't get it. So I don't know about this guy, to be honest, because I honestly, like, looking at what we have and looking at what's on my plate, he's a really sexy guy and he's really, really attractive. And I really do like him and his personality. He's very funny. He's a really great kisser. I think physically we probably would get along really fucking well. He's just a very strong, sexy ass man. But like, I don't know how worth it is. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how worth it is. Like, and he told me, like, when I asked him, like, so what can we do that you would actually participate? I told him, I was like, I'm really not used to people not participating. You know, like, if you ask me out for, dinner, I expect and assume that you're also gonna eat dinner with me. You know, but you know what? That's not true, because do you know who? Listen, oh my god, no! I'm just realizing something. I just realized something. So when I was younger, okay, when I was younger, um, so often I would go on these dates with men, and these men would take me to get dinner, and they would not eat, and then they would pay for everything, um, and then we'd go home, go to his place, and have sex. And it was almost like this weird thing where, like, there was almost this transactional thing that was happening, you know, where, like, I guess maybe I needed food. I don't know. Let me refill my water. It was like this weird transactional thing where, like, yeah, I would go on these dates with men. We'd sit and have conversations, and they watch me eat. And I don't know if this is that guy. I mean, so on our last date, I definitely offered to pay for myself. I always do. But he was definitely at a certain point like, yeah, I'm just going to pay for all your drinks, right? And so I know it's not like a cheap thing. I know it's not like oh, I just can't afford to do this sort of thing. Um, I think he just doesn't necessarily want to eat, which is, I don't know what that means. I almost want to ask him, like, is there some sort of disorder or something that you're going, like, not to sound like bitchy or whatever, but like, I'm not used to men not having some, I don't know, but maybe this is just his unique thing. I don't know. I really don't know. So anyway, so I'm seeing him tonight. I don't know how it's gonna go. I will say that I don't think I'm gonna be able to help myself um with kind of cornering him, basically asking what the fuck are we doing? Because I mean, this is our second date. I think we had our first date like 2 3 weeks ago. It was a good date. I was really excited about it, but, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? Um what are we doing? Um because I guess what it is so after meeting, what name did I give him? Oh, Bernie. I called him Bernie. After meeting Bernie, it's like, I don't think I want to give my nights to these men where shit's not going anywhere. It's just not going anywhere. Like, where would this go? Because it's like, I mean, I know he wants to fuck me, and I know that I would have sex with him too, but I'm not gonna have sex with a guy I'm not dating. And I've made that super clear. You know, that doesn't turn me on, that doesn't excite me. Who knows? Maybe we'll just end up being friends or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, I just don't know what we're doing and like why I should continue to see him, to be honest with you. I don't want to chase anyone. I don't want to be the person who's running after someone and you know trying to get their attention. Like, and I'm, you know, and now I have a person who, you know, is texting me all the time, is always interested in seeing and hearing from me. And like, you know, I want to spend my time with men who want to spend their time with me. Because I guess almost like, I guess part of my concern is like, does he feel obligated to, like, does he feel obligated to sort of do certain things? Does he feel obligated to like take me on this date that he doesn't really want to take me on? Because I don't know, he just thinks that that's what's supposed to happen. Because there's another thing too. So also I will say, so he has a girlfriend back in Chicago where he's from, and I know that that's like his girlfriend is white. You know, I don't know. Like when these black men treat me like this, I just keep thinking about the white women in their life because I don't know. I don't think that they also don't go on decent dates with white girls. I don't think that's a thing. You know, in fact, he told me this whole thing about he met this girl. I mean, apparently she was crazy. You seem like you want a stable relationship, so why are you poly? That's a whole other conversation. You can be poly and have stable relationships. There's a lot of people who have stable relationships are also poly. Problem is, there's a lot of poly people who are not really poly. They're just sort of dating, or they're serial dating, or they're not committing, which is not what poly is. That's a whole other conversation. So anyway, so it's just I just don't know what we're doing. I'm gonna talk to him about it tonight because, girl, it's just I don't want to waste my time. And I think that like if he wants to do different, I don't know where his mind is at. I don't get it because I guess part of me keeps thinking, so like, what are you getting out of this? Like, because obviously he likes me and he's attracted to me, but like he doesn't like, he's very short in his text messages, and I don't text, so I get that to some degree. You know, I just don't want to feel like I'm begging someone when they're not really interested, you know? So that's kind of where my mind's at. So I'll talk to him about it tonight. I'll tell you guys how it goes. So I only started going on the whole tirade about black guys because of that night and how I, you know, even though I was really upset that D stood me up or canceled on the date or whatever, I also didn't care as much as I you know did, really, because I met this really great guy, and so it's like it's been so weird how much that's changed the way that I've looked at a lot of stuff, because like I'll be honest, y'all, and this is a character flaw of mine. This is a character flaw of mine. But I'm sitting down. I've gotten, so there's this weird thing that happens to me when I find more stable partnerships with men. And this is what happened to me in my last relationship, where the moment I sort of meet someone who's a little bit more stable, I start to get more productive. I get more work done. I am more focused on my shit. You know, like I've been going on these dates and thinking in the back of my head with people like, I would rather be at work, you know, I'd rather be home working than like on this date, you know? And that's been since I've met Bernie. And so it's a very new development for me because I'm generally not someone who's like, oh shit, I, you know, miss work. But meeting him and I guess knowing how he works and stuff, it's like, it's motivated me a lot to sort of get back to task, because you guys, it's been hard for me to get back to work. It really has been. I think sometimes with my projects, I have these really ambitious um, goals, and then sometimes it's very easy because I have such ambitious goals to be like, "Oh no, girl, let's just like let it die." But yeah, so I'm definitely feeling pretty good about stuff. Um, I'm making art, I'm being productive, and that's kind of like switched off when I started seeing him. Um, so yeah, so the thing I really want to tell you guys about was so Bernie told me on a date that um, he went on this date with this girl, and so for those of you guys who didn't watch my last broadcast about this, I'll just tell you quickly his situation. So Bernie is married, and Bernie has a very healthy, happy poly relationship with his wife. Bernie is bisexual, and him and his wife were both dating the same woman for a while. And as they were dating the same woman, the woman ended up being really toxic and terrible and just was not good for them. And so they basically made the decision to for a period of time focus on themselves, focus on each other, and not like add a new person to the mix, right? And so Bernie's just getting back out there. um and since he's been back out there, he's gone out with me and he's gone out with this other woman, and he told me that he went on this date with this other woman because I was telling him about the I told you guys recently about the guy who I met at a poly event, whose girlfriend was a fan of mine, and we went on this date, and when I was really excited to see him again, he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just like not attracted to you." I told him about that, and I told him kind of like about my situation of like going on this date with this guy who essentially just wasted my time because he wanted his ego to be boosted. Um, and he told me that like he was kind of in a similar situation with a person where he had discussed with her. um he hadn't discussed with her how he felt. Rather, I got lost with what I was saying. And the way he felt was that she's a really sweet girl, but she's a very young type of personality. She's 29. Bernie is turning 32 this weekend. Um, and so not 29, she's 26. And in his opinion, she just seemed like a really young person. And that was not really what he was looking for. Um, and so, but he hasn't communicated that to her. And in the same time, he also invited her to his birthday. Um, and so there's this potentially awkward sort of situation now because, well, she's going to be at the birthday, which is at his house. And, that could be dramatic because he's not interested in her anymore. And he honestly does not want her at the party, but he's invited her. And so it is what it is. Um, and when he was telling me that story, he then told me that I was invited to his birthday party. Now, mind you, like him and I just started seeing each other. We've been on two really great hot and heavy dates. Um, but I'm now jumping into the situation where I am meeting his wife at his house and his friends on our third date. And also potentially this girl that he went on a date with. Let me go to the bathroom and be right back. I don't know. So there's a couple layers of things that I'm nervous about. So A, and I told you guys this on my last broadcast, despite what I usually do, we had sex on the second date. And we had sex because it felt right. It felt good. It was clear that we were going to continue to see each other. And so, even though I don't usually do that, I had sex with him. And so there's that. And obviously, I mean, since we started doing that, like that's a possibility that could happen on his birthday. But then I've be there. So I will say that one of the things that I'm still working through is like how to feel around someone's partner. Because like when you see someone you're dating who's also dating someone else, with that person, you can just tell that like there's a different type of relationship that they have versus what you guys have, right? And for me, it's because they're married, it's like, am I ever going to be able to kind of, not that I want exactly that because we're different people, but you know what I mean? Like that energy is going to be hard for me to keep up with. And not only that, like, I don't know, like I'm very, like in the times where I've dated married men where I've interacted with their wife, um, I have definitely been very respectful of this is their space, this is their day, this is when they're together. Let me not do that, right? I also know that Bernie wants to have sex with me, but I also know that that might be really uncomfortable for me because I don't want to have sex with him and his wife. That's not how it's going to happen, and he knows that I'm not into that. And there's always a part of me that whenever I enter into like relationships with men who are married, where their wife is bisexual, it's like, would this be easier if I were bi? I mean, I'm not, and it would never go that way because it needed to. But do you know what I mean? Like, would everything just be easier for me if I were bisexual? You know? So anyway, I'm nervous about that. I'm really, really fucking nervous about that. And know that the married guy I'm talking about is not black. He is Ashkenazi Jewish. And so, no, that's why I call him Bernie, because he's Jewish and he's leftist and he's political. And that's funny because he doesn't really agree with Bernie Sanders. I mean, yeah, he doesn't really agree with Bernie Sanders. So, but yeah, so I'm kind of nervous about it. But I'm also trying not to overthink shit. Like, listen, I am a Virgo and I have a tendency to overthink everything. So I'm really trying to not do that because at the end of the day, I know that he likes me. And I think part of why I'm meeting his wife so quickly is because he likes me. And clearly we need to be able to be in the same room with each other. I'm also meeting his friends. And part of it reminds me a lot about my last relationship where like I met my ex's friends on like our second date. It went pretty fast. And so things are going kind of fast here too, but it doesn't feel wrong. It doesn't feel incorrect or bad. It just feels right. But it's also, you have that thing in the back of your mind where it's like, should we really do this? Is this something that, because what if we start something we can't finish? Like what if we start having sex? What if we start having this, dynamic that like, it was just too much too soon. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm worried about that. I'm really worried about that. But I'm trying to like go with the flow and see how it goes. And so we'll see. So yeah, that was kind of like the big story. That's really what I wanted to talk about in my last broadcast. Is like that now I'm in a situation where I would rather spend time with him than like meet new people. And I actually have a date with a new person on Friday. So we'll see where that goes. One of the only reasons why I'm going on a date with that guy is because he lives really close. He lives 3 miles away from me. So we'll see. Because Bernie lives all the way in Long Beach. I don't know what it is about these men I'm connecting with who live all the way out in fucking some other part of Los Angeles. But, you know. So I started to tell a story that I didn't finish on my broadcast. And it's actually a good story. I forgot exactly how it came up though. I really forgot how it came up. But it was the one Dawn policy thing, because this is a very special story. Because this was a lot of growing pains for me, and it actually is a pretty good story. So I'll tell it to you guys right now. So, do you guys hear that honking horn? I don't know what that fucking man always wants. There's like this guy who's always like cruising through the neighborhood on a bike. Oh my god, where did my thing go? Cruising through the neighborhood on a bike. Like honking a fucking horn, and it's the most like annoying thing ever to me. Like, just stop. Just stop. I'm almost done with this TV, by the way. Okay, so when I was living in Orange County, I would go to this dungeon that's now closed down, right? And when I first started going out into the BDSM community, it was a lot of me watching and observing, because I've told you guys this before, but when I was younger, I used to be involved in the swinger community. And this is like when I like when I was 18 years old, was going through so much. Like a lot of abuse and shit happened with me in that community, because I was young, I was trans, and if you've ever been to a swinger thing, or you know about like the general way that shit ends up lining up, there's different pricing structures based on gender. And so you'll have women get in free, couples get in for less, and men get in for like this exorbitant, amount of money. And so what would happen is I always got in free. And so the owner of the party would like bring me out in front of the doorway, like where these guys were standing outside, him and Han, trying to peek in and figure out if they want to go. And she would basically take me out and like she put me right there. And I was 18 years old and I was very eager to please, and I was going through all this trauma shit. And basically the suggestion was, if you come in here, you can play with her. And there's a lot of me being pushed to two men who I didn't necessarily want to be with, but because in a very weird way, back then that community was like a safe place for me in a weird fucked up way. I sort of went along with it and did the things and participated and all that stuff. And so long story short, there was a lot of negative experiences that I had in the in those types of communities. But definitely going through my last relationship kind of made me understand that even though I definitely had all these negative things that happened to me that impacted me in a really negative way, at the same time, kink is part of me. Kink is part of what turns me on. It's part of the way that makes me, part of the way that makes, gets, it's like a cathartic way off, obviously. It's a cathartic way for me, honestly, to deal with a lot of trauma stuff. And so, at the end of the day, I can't deny that it's something that I do or that I like or that I'm involved in. And you know what I mean? I can't, I really can't deny that. Right. And so when I started going to these dungeons, even though these were not swinger things, I was new to this world and I didn't quite know. And that like BDSM had always been around me, but was never really something that I had engaged in. And so when I first started going out, I would go to this dungeon and I would just start socializing and walking around and observing and this and this and that. And so it was so funny. So towards the end of my time in the swinger community, because I just knew so many people and I was very talkative and I was a very social person, I would go and just to talk, just for social hour, because there were people who I started to get to know and like, and, even though there were so many negative, bad things connected to that, there was a lot of positive things and I couldn't, pretend that that wasn't the case. And so it was kind of the same thing with this. I mean, but me starting off from the point of me just being social. So of course there would be doms who were like, oh, do you want to go and do a scene or whatever? But I always said no, because I just didn't trust these men to do things to me. I don't know them. I'm new. And when you're a new woman in the scene, right? When you're a new woman, like a young new woman in the scene, everyone, like all the doms are just like, who's that? Who is she? Da, 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 da. And so I got a lot of attention when I first started going out because people didn't know me and they wanted to, figure me out. And so at this particular dungeon, there was this guy who did floggers. And he was just, one of the most fun people to watch new scenes. He was just really good at doing the thing and just a really cool person. And he was kind of cute. And those women, from what I saw, they only played with him. I've only ever seen them play with him. You know, that's kind of just been how that was, right? And so I didn't quite understand that first, but I just assumed he's really good at what he does. And so that's what that situation is, right? And so him and I sort of had an in passing conversation about, coming down and taking some classes at a place in LA. Now I was living in Orange County at this point, and going to LA wasn't impossible, but going to LA for like a 2-hour class, which would require me to like take the train, and I just wasn't really going to do that really. So I told him like, like if I can, I can, I'd love to, take a class or whatever, but, I'm just not available. And so the way he spoke to me was just very professional. It was very like, I teach these classes, I'd love for you to come out and take these classes. I didn't think much of it, right? And so I kept going to the dungeon. He kept being there. We would see each other in passing. We'd be friendly. We'd be cordial. I'd watch. And that was kind of the relationship. And so then I moved to LA, right? Oh, orange look good on this. I'm trying to figure out. So I just finished these two. Well, I just finished this one. I'm trying to figure out. I guess yellow would probably work. Sorry, I'm like, graphic design is my passion. So it's gonna be mostly yellow then. And it's gonna be, okay. Anyway, back on track. So I spent months walking around the dungeon, socializing with people, being friendly, getting to know people, building up a core group of friends and people who I could potentially do scenes with. And to be honest with you guys, I really miss those people. In fact, I'm going to try to go back down to Orange County on Monday. That's my schedule because there is an event down there, so I might do that. I don't know, maybe. because I do miss those people because those were like, I mean, Orange County is interesting because it's just so how to say this. Orange County is very so Orange County doesn't have much of a kink scene, but it has a lot of swingers. And I feel like wherever you get into like these heavily kind of conservative suburban areas, you're going to get mostly swingers, right? And so it's not like Orange County wasn't kinky, but they definitely weren't the same. And so when you had people who were involved in the kink community out there, they were really, really, really passionate about it, and um, they definitely wanted to really focus on forming a community of people. Do you know what I mean? So there was definitely a more intense sort of connection that you'd have with people because, you know, in LA we're spoiled, but in Orange County, there's not much. There was like that one dungeon that got shut down. I mean, there's a new one now, but there was that one dungeon that got shut down, right? And so anyway, so after a while of going to these events, I eventually moved to LA. And in LA, there's a bunch of places to go. There's a lot of options in terms of BDSM events to go to. And so I started to get spoiled. But also at this time, I had gone and I had observed enough to really sort of have this understanding of like what I want to do, right? And so there was a particular night at one of the dungeons that's pretty close to where I live, actually. And it's the whole thing. The theme of that event is like, it's a BDSM like taste tester type of event, right? Where like, if you've never done certain things, there's different people who have different booths and they, you know, can show you a little spanky thing, a little tighty thing, a little, you know, stingy thing or whatever you want. And it's really designed for newbies who are trying to figure out what they like, right? And so at this point, I had not done a scene at a dungeon yet. I mean, I'd done light stuff with someone, but I had not done like a scene at a dungeon yet. And so I went to this event being like, this is a really safe place for me to try it, you know, because it's definitely, there's no pressure for me to, because I think in these situations, you're dealing with people who know what they're doing. And so you don't really have to worry necessarily about, you know, doing something with someone and them fucking it up. Like, these are people who know what they're doing. These are people who teach classes. These are people who are very well respected and well loved. So there's less of a concern that, you know, shit's going to go awry. And so I'm at this event and I'm having a really good time. I'm being social, you know, I'm meeting people. And I noticed that the same guy that does a lot of the flogging stuff at the old Orange County dungeon I used to go to was there hosting a booth. Now, even though his thing was floggers, he was hosting a paddles, um, a little paddles area, which is very different. And so, you know, at this point, I was a little bit more bold, and it, you know, the night was like a let's try out night. And I've seen him do his scenes with other people, and they were really, really good. And he was clearly really good at what he does. And so I was curious, and so I walk up to him, you know, say, hey, you know, can I try some stuff? And you know, he was pretty ineffectual and like very like I guess excited, but like very sort of professional, I guess. And and so I bent over on the bench and he did the paddly thing. And I've never felt this before, but I reached what you call subspace with him, which was a really weird thing because I had not experienced it. Now, subspace, the way that it feels is like, it's almost like you're on a drug. You're like, you're really loopy. You're very just happy and giddy and just giggly. And a lot of that, it comes as a result of relinquishing control and letting the person you're with do what they're doing. And so I had never experienced this. And what I didn't understand about subspace at the time was that when you're in subspace, it can be kind of dangerous because you are now in a state where you're very suggestible and you're very loopy. You're just very loopy. That's like the best way to say it. And so, I should not use this one. And so I got spanked, and then I went and got tied, and I just, I was having the time of my fucking life. He did do like a little aftercare stuff with us, with me rather. And then he did tell me that, like, well, here's what happened. We finished our scene, and he was like, "You should send me a message later." And so I go on and I send him a message on this website that we're all part of. And in his message, he's like, because basically it was like, if you want to do that again, let's let's discuss, let's come and have conversations about what you want to do, what you don't want to do, all that stuff, right? And so I'm like thinking, okay, cool. So because I didn't want to forget, I go out into the patio and I open up my phone and I go on the website and I send him a message, right? And so as I'm sitting there sending him a message, basically being like, hey, I'd love to sort of do something in the future, he comes outside and sits right next to me. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I mean, it's a very small patio, so, maybe it wasn't. I don't really know. But he comes and sits right next to me. And so it's kind of awkward because I'm messaging him right there, and he's right there. But he comes and sits right next to me, and he is now on his phone responding to my message, and he sends me his phone number. He could have just did that in front of me, but he sends me his phone number. And so he makes like a little joke about how, oh, it's like we're doing something in secret, ha ha ha. And mind you, like, I know that he has a wife and a sub, and a couple of subs, and they're all there currently. So I was definitely like confused as to like why he said that was like a secret sort of thing, because it's definitely not. I mean, we're not hiding here. But we started texting, and through the text messages, essentially, it became really clear that he was interested in me sub-wise, but then also he was interested in me sexually. And he was cute, and so the interest was definitely mutual. But I was not really part of his world, and so I didn't really quite know like how that whole thing would go, right? And so I go on with my night. Like I said, I went and I got tied, which was fun. And I was really loopy. And so the same night I ran into a guy who I see all the time at other events. And I've watched him do like a really prolonged scene with a girl. And so I knew he was really good at what he did. And so he offered to do a scene with me. And in my, subspace loopy moment, I was like, sure, let's do a scene. And so he did a scene with me that was a little bit more intense. And I had a really good time, right? Now, like I said, I'm very social. And so I was walking around after, and I ran into this guy. Now, there's a guy that I saw when I went into the event. He was like this white guy that, it's funny because I'll tell you, this is going somewhere, but he had all the red flags on him that I should have read. He was like a skinny white guy who was very socially awkward, but he was wearing like a full suit, which is not uncommon at BDSM dungeons, but he had like a suitcase sort of thing, and he just looked he looked very Jordan Peterson fan. And so we start having a conversation, right? Um, and it turns out that night there was a swingers party happening for so there is a woman who runs a very close knit, pretty intense, very like interview only, exclusive, but very free and love and happy um, type of swinger space. And so there was a part of me, because my problem, honestly, with a lot of swinger spaces is that, like, so my memories of being in the swinger community were me walking through a group of people and men grabbing at me, right? Men grabbing at me, grabbing my hand, trying to make me touch them, men grabbing my boobs without asking me, men forcing my head down. It was a lot of that. And that's a lot of what, these swinger parties are. So like when if you're looking at a swinger party and they're like, oh, no men, no single men allowed, that's why, because a lot of these men who come to these parties they're just forceful, disgusting assholes. But with this with this party, it seemed like it was very different. It was very interview only. Everyone knows each other. People are more friends and family and this and that. And so I was a little bit like, okay, I guess maybe if I could do a thing, I could do it with these people. And I was in subspace and I wasn't totally thinking clearly. And so he had told me, that he knows the woman who runs it and that he's friends with her and this and this and that. And so we decide to jump into his car. See, now while I'm telling the story, I'm like, girl, what the fuck were you doing? But like fucking like subspace will do that shit where it's just like you have to really watch what you're doing because you're just so suggestible in that headspace. You're just so fucking suggestible. And so oh, okay. So here's the thing. So I didn't actually. I don't remember when he asked me this, but I think it was before we went to this party. So earlier in the night, he had asked me what my gender identity and sexual orientation were, right? And that was a very suspicious question. And I'm like, and so I have a thing where, I mean, there are people in the community who know me and know that I'm trans, and but I don't know this guy. I wasn't really attracted to him, and like he just seemed like at the time a cool person to know. But like I did not feel like I needed to tell him all of my trans shit because why? What are we doing? Why do I need? That's such an awkward question to ask people. And I didn't really understand why he asked that question, to be honest. And so I told him I'm a woman and I'm straight, and I kept it at that, because why do I need to tell you all the other things? And so anyway, we're driving to this party, and he asked me what I do, right? He asked me what my job was. And I told him, oh, I'm a writer, and speaker. And he was like, oh, are you one of those women who sits on the internet all day and complains about men? And I was in his car on the freeway, and this is almost like when I start to recognize that this was like not a good idea and like not a thing to do. And so I don't remember if I said yes or no. I don't remember what the fuck I said, honestly. I think I said maybe. Just trying to keep it real fucking vague. And so anyway, we get to the party and the party's over, right? Like the owner of the party, this party, she sees me all the time at these these other meetup events that I go to, and she's a white woman, and she's just very like, how to describe her? She just always seems like she's fucked up and high on something. I have never seen her once wearing a bra. Not once. Not once, right? And so she's just always just very loopy and ooh. And every time she sees me, she's always like, ooh, you look really sexy. You look really sexy. And she's read a lot of my like rants about women hitting on me and things. And so she knows. And so she doesn't like make it like a big deal or whatever, but she's always like, ooh, you look sexy. Ooh. And so she was happy to see me. I've never gone formally through the interview process to be part of that community. But she knows me and she's familiar with me. And so it was pretty okay that we just showed up there. And so anyway, that was over, and so we were pretty bummed about that. But then it turned out that there was another party going on at a dungeon that wasn't very far from where we were. Um, and so now this dungeon, this is a dungeon. This is a dungeon that I've gone to several times, always trying to like make it work, always trying to like reason with it. But it's a no for me, dog. I mean, it's a Black owned dungeon. And so it's one of those weird things. So, like, when I first heard about this dungeon, all I heard from people was that it was scary, that it was that it was dirty, that people didn't like being there, that it was like a bad place to be, and like I didn't hear very many positive things about this dungeon, right? Then I went there and realized, oh no, it's just Black owned, and there's Black people here, and that's why all these white people are like, oh, it's dirty and it's scary and it's dangerous, right? And that's part of it, and I will say that that's part of it, but bitch. So I'll just tell you the first night I went to this place, right? First night I went to this place, there was a dance party, right? And the idea was it was going to be BDSM in the corner, dance parties over here, right? And so, girl, look, I like to dance. I like a little bit of BDSM shit. So, like, I was dressed to fucking dance. I was excited to fucking dance. It was what I was fucking into. And I got there, and no one was dancing. No one was dancing. There wasn't even a DJ. There was music. Someone was playing something on the radio, but no one was dancing. And so when I first go in there, so there's a girl who I see all the time at events, and this kind of gives me a lot of fucking anxiety, and she gives me a lot of fucking anxiety. So this is a girl who came to one of my talks at her college. I don't even remember what college. But I went to an event and she was like, oh my God, Kat, like, is that you? I hate hearing, oh my God, Kat. I hate, like, girl, like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear, oh my God, Kat, is that Kat Black? I don't want to hear it. But apparently I went to I gave a talk at her school and she was there. And so she was like really, really excited to see me. It was just, yeah. And so, but now I've gotten more comfortable with her. She's cool or whatever. But like when I first met her, I was like, I don't even want to confirm that I'm Kat Black because I don't want you to now. I don't know. I just don't like being recognized. I hate it. And so anyway, so she was there, and she at the time she'd been talking to like this much older man, and he's a really sweet guy. This guy is like a really, really sweet guy, but he's a little pervert. You can just tell he's a little fucking pervert. But he's a nice guy. And he saw me, and almost immediately when I walked in and I was like, there's no fucking dancing. She got up and she was like, Kat. I was like, and she got up and said hi to me, and then the guy who she was with was like, oh, hello, you know, kind of thing. And so he proceeded to give me a tour because I told him it was my first time being at this space. And you know, I wanted to see what it was all about because I've seen a lot of pictures of this place. I've seen a lot of pictures, and it's like, in the pictures I've seen have been beautiful. Because I will say, of all the dungeons, it's one of the oldest and it's one of the largest. And so it's a very interesting place. And so he's giving me the grand tour. He's showing me this room and that room. And then we walk into like the big BDSM room where there's all the equipment, there's all the stuff. And bitch, I walk in on this woman getting gangbanged. Now let me explain why that's so fucking weird, okay? Because if you're listening to this and you probably and you don't know BDSM clubs, you probably won't understand this. But believe it or not, the vast majority of these events do not allow sex. They don't allow you know, penetrative sex. You can maybe do stuff with toys, you can maybe do things here and there, but they don't, most of them don't allow nudity. and don't allow, I mean, not, well, no, they do allow nudity, but like, no, they do not allow nudity. I don't think anyone, but they don't allow sex, right? They don't allow sex. And so you have to understand that. So I have a lot of fucking trauma connected to being part of the swinger community. And so for me, it was kind of fucking upsetting to like walk into a room and see this woman getting gangbanged. It just was. I was like kind of pissed off about it because I came here for a dance event. I came here for a fucking dance event. And here's a girl getting gangbanged in the corner. Like, you know what I mean? Not what I signed up for. Not why I came. Not why I'm here. Not what I wanted to see. Not what I wanted to do. Not what I wanted to be involved in. I was coming to dance. I came here to have a good time. I'm feeling really attacked right now. And so she's getting gangbanged in the corner, and like I'm kind of blown the fuck away. And I explain it to him, and you know, I basically leave the place. And so also, I'm looking around this place, and there are some very, very, very young looking girls there. Like the event was 21 plus because there was alcohol there and all that stuff. But there are some very, very young looking girls. And so I was kind of uncomfortable because, girl, like, you guys understand, I was an 18-year-old at a swinger club. I know how people treat those girls. I know how, you know, I know a lot of this shit. And so there's a part of me that whenever I see people like that in those spaces, I get real nervous for them. Not that they can't defend themselves, not that they can't do anything for themselves, but because I know, like, bitch, you could not have told an 18-year-old me. You could not have told an 18-year-old me not to be at a swinger party. You could not have told an 18-year-old me that there were too many things that were going on that I didn't understand. Girl, you couldn't have told me shit. You could have told me shit. I was fine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. You don't have to worry about me. I'm good. Worry about you. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, I have like this, I have this sort of gut reaction to seeing like very young girls at these things, honestly. Um, and so I did end up having a conversation with someone later, and they did tell me that those girls were underage. They were not underage, like under 18, but they were under 21. You know, but like, you know, it's cool and this and that, and just don't make a big deal about it, sort of thing. And so, girl, like, there's a lot of shit that was throwing me the fuck off about this place. And then also, I was in the kitchen, you know, picking at the dinner table because what the fuck am I doing at this event? And I listened to the owner of the party, the owner of the space is there, and I hear him talking about how he throws all these parties, right? And how he throws all these parties, and that oftentimes he will throw a dance party because women like to dance, you know. And mind you, I'm currently at a dance party, and there is no dancing. There is no dancing, right? And so I'm just listening to this shit, and I'm like, interesting, because it kind of sounds like you're manipulating people to come to this event and get in for free so they can go in the other room and get gangbanged like that girl. Like, and so I started to kind of understand a little bit why people were like, this place is really male dominated. I mean, also this particular club, like I said, this is a Black owned club. This particular one is very, 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 very hetero, male dom, female submissive. Very that. It's very that. Like, that is really the only, like, they have like one event that's like a femdom night, but like every other night of the week, it is not that. It is not that. And that's like basically almost not even fucking welcome. You know, I mean, not that they'll stop people, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that is a male dom place. And it's also a very private club sort of thing. So, you know, there's a lot of people who, you know, go there, and you know, this is like, it's one of those spaces where they have like all of the fucking, like not all the clubs are like this, but people have sort of like leather badges, and there's different, almost biker gang BDSM people, and like there's just a whole fucking thing. Um, and that's like a pretty heavy place for that sort of thing, where there's all these people and they've got these different names, the Knights of the this and the Knights of the that, you know, and you're just like, wow, these these grown men playing dress up and whatever. Okay, cool. And so anyway, that was my experience of that place. And then later, I saw those underage girls do this like sexy thing with these other girls, and it just was such a flashback because like these two girls were doing this strap-on scene, and these guys just kept hovering over them, like directly over them, like they were having their moment, and they were like hovering over them, like jerking off over them, like right in front of them, and like that's just not the way. I mean, you don't want someone to be up in your space like that, and it's so weird to be in a space where like people weren't stopping that. And then I heard that, and the guy that was doing that, I found out later, like he like works there, and so it's not, so they wouldn't have kicked him out or prevented him or stopped him from doing anything because, well, he works here. So girl, like, so when we went to this place on that night, I was definitely like, I don't know. So this guy, I mean, so I could tell, like at first I wasn't really aware. I couldn't really tell. But at a certain point, I really did start to recognize, okay, he likes me. He likes me, and, he maybe wants to do something with me. And so I don't remember how it happened, but we went into like there is like a room with a locked door on it at this place, which makes this particular dungeon unique, because in a lot of other dungeons there are no locked doors. So yeah. But we went to this room with this locked door. And I forget the exact way I did it, but I did tell him that I was transgender. And that's when he was like, oh, that's why I asked about, what your gender identity and sexuality were, because like you never fucking know these days. You never know, these trannies are just he didn't say that, but the way he was talking is like these trannies are just everywhere, like, kind of thing. You never know these days. You never know these days. And so I was, and I explained to him, like, first of all, I wasn't interested in you. Second of all, I don't want to be with a man who doesn't like me. I don't want to be with a man who doesn't like me. And like, I'm not tricking you. I'm not misleading you. I don't like being with men who don't like trans women. So I'm 100% not interested in tricking you or fooling you or convincing you or any of that shit. So that's not what happened here. And so he was, pretty understanding, but was like, yeah, I'm just like really not into that. And I was like, that's totally fine, dude, because I really wasn't even. I mean, he also did his little like, I wasn't even really interested in you like that, but you seem so nice and this and that. And I was like, okay, like, oh, fine, it's fine, he's whatever. I mean, I don't care, but it was just a weird thing to like have a conversation about, because like I wasn't even looking at you like that. Like, I'm not trying to say that to be a bitch. It was just like I wasn't, I was like, here's this guy who knows these people, let me hang out with him, and that's about as deep as it fucking went. Like there was no weird like expectation thing. No, it was not that way at all. And so basically we decide to leave, and he offers me, well, he basically kind of says that he'll drive me home. But he clearly doesn't really want to, because he drove me all the way there. But after he finds out that I'm trans, he's just like not really interested in doing that. And so girl, I'm still in like my little subspace headspace, and I'm just like, whatever, like I'm just having a good time, whatever. And we're as we're leaving, we see this group of, so the party was dead. There was no one was there. There was like a guy that I see there all the fucking time, but no one else was there. It was a dead event. And so we were basically bored, and we were like, like we're gonna leave. And so as we're leaving, there's this couple. There was this couple, white woman, black guy, Mexican guy. and we watched them like walk into the event and then like promptly walk out of the event. Um, and so, the black guy, kept flirting with me, and he was actually really cute. Um, and was like really interested in me and stuff. But and he, because like basically what happens with this guy is like we're like me and this other guy, we're like it's nothing's happening. Like I'm not gonna fuck him, you know, it's just not gonna happen. And so what are we really doing here? And so the guy kind of ends up just kind of, I don't know, just being there sort of in a way. Um, but like this guy's flirting with me a lot, and the girls kind of flirting with me, and they're all like, oh, you should come and hang out with us, you should come and hang out with us, you should come hang out with us. Now mind you, I'm a little sensitive to unicorn hunting, and so when I feel like that's happening, like I don't really want to do that. And so I did kind of communicate like, yeah, I'm just really not gonna do that. So if that's what you guys' MO is, I'm not the one. But she was like, no, you're just so beautiful. You're so beautiful. We would really love to hang out with you. And so I was like, all right. Like I hemmed and hawed about it, but I was low key. Like, here's this guy who doesn't want to drive me home. Here's these people who want to drive me to their place. And after talking to them, they were like, oh yeah, it's a little closer to where I live. And I was like, okay, I mean, I feel really weird, bad vibes about this, but I guess I'll come with you. And so I leave that guy behind and I get into my car, I get into their car, and we go to their apartment. And so I walk into their apartment, and there's like disco lights, there's bulbs everywhere. Like it's like this weird, like, those little like things you can put in your apartment, put it in the corner, and now it's a party because it's like a rotating light thing. Like they had a couple of those, they had some music playing, the lights were all off, and I was trying to figure out what it is. Now I'll be real and say that like I'm a huge like people watcher. I'm a huge people watcher, and I really really love to sort of like sit there and like try to figure out like what's going on here, you know. And so when I was seeing those people, when I was what am I fucking trying to say? When I sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. When I was in the apartment with those people, I was like trying to figure out what exactly this dynamic was, because you've got this black guy, you've got this white woman, you've got this Mexican guy. What's going on? Not that people can't all get along, but like not because of race. It was just like, what is this exact layout here? Because I also was like, because they weren't really dressed for the event. Like they weren't really dressed to go into like a BDSM club. So it was also like, what were you guys doing there? And what are you guys trying to do? And so through a couple of conversations, basically what I figured out was, so this white woman was really interesting because she apparently works in skincare, right? And she did like that thing where she was like, how old do you think I am? Because her skin apparently was so good, right? And so like I remember guessing her age and getting it right, and then her being like, oh well, usually people think I'm like this age and that age, but yeah, you got it right on the first try. And I was like, okay, all right. Let me go grab my fan. This is so hot in here. Okay, and so like what their situation was, as I pieced together, was they were clearly, so she was clearly an older woman who really wanted to have a good time in her life and with herself. And so she was definitely kind of looking to have, a little threesome situation, right? And so she was looking to have basically me and the black guy. They first started with the black guy, um, who was very handsome, actually, very, very handsome. Um, and they were trying to basically set up some group sex situation. And so, whenever I've been in a situation where I hear this stuff, I'm always like, wow, that's really great that you guys do that. Like, good for you. But like, I don't like women, and so that's never gonna happen. Like, thank you so very fucking much, but I'm strictly dickly, like so. Um, and so it was such an awkward thing because they were all really cool, but it was just so uncomfortable and to some degree. They did reveal later that they were all on Molly. And apparently they did this weird thing where you like take Molly and dilute it in water and just drink that, which I don't know. I've done Molly once. I don't know how drugs work though. Um, and so like she was just on a whole another level, a whole another level. And so I was just not there at this point in the night. Like I was not only sober, but like tired. And so I ended up going home soon thereafter. The black guy walked me out and he definitely wanted something. But, after already having this experience earlier where I, told the guy that I was trans and he wasn't really into it, I was like, girl, I'm just not going to risk that. And, like, I'm just not going to risk it, regardless of how cute he was. And so anyway, I go home, and the next day there's actually this event that happens at a club close to me, where it's very much like a BDSM event with a dance floor thing. It's like the real version of the thing I went to that dungeon to do. This is an actual one that is real, where they actually do have DJs and stuff. And actually, so the birthday party I went to last night was for the guy who so when I went to this event, and there's the guy whose birthday party I went to last night. I met him at a poly event, and he's just really cool person, really really nice guy. And when I met him at this event, and I told him about my experience. Told him about my experience at this, getting spanked and having a really, really good time. And he was like, okay, well, we can also do some stuff here if you want. And so, and mind you, I was texting the guy who spanked me at the club, back and forth. We'd send some like sexy messages and stuff, And so, so I do this scene with this guy. What are we gonna call him? We'll call him Luke, right? And so Luke is he's really, really fucking good at what he does. And I get spanked. And this is the second time I've done a scene. He did paddles and hand spanking, all that stuff. And I once again fall into subspace, right? And so honestly, like this was like the week that was like so transformative for me, because like I was so excited. I started doing this BDSM stuff, and it was so fulfilling. It was so it just made me really happy, right? And so I definitely was really psyched at the idea of continuing to do this BDSM stuff. And I realized that it was like a really important part of my life and like a thing that I needed to include in my regimen, so to speak. And so I send this guy a text message. What are we going to call the flogger guy? We'll call him Frank, right? Frank the flogger. And so Frank and I had a conversation about where I'm at, right? And I told him that I'm still relatively new. But when it comes to like sex and stuff, I don't just have sex with people. I usually want to date them or get to know them. And so his whole thing is, so he basically has, so Frank essentially has a harem of women. All right. And I had to learn and figure this out with time. But like all those women who are around him, that's his harem, right? That is his harem. And so the way that that works is basically he gets to date, top, and play with other women, but those women only play with him. They've got an exclusive play relationship, dating, love, whatever, sex relationship with him. And so when we first started having our conversations about us dating or us doing anything, he was low key like, so if you and I do this, if we do date, like you'd have to become part of my harem. And girl, y'all know me. Y'all know me. Like, first of all, I'm already seeing like 5 people. But like, I don't like the idea of being constrained to anyone in that way. Like the thought of me being with one guy who I barely know and then having to sign up for that. By the way, I finished this. Oops. Isn't that cute? Isn't that cute and shit? This is just terrifying thought. Just a fucking terrifying thought. Because I'm like, I don't want to I don't want to do that, girl. I really don't want to be part of that. And so I told him that. I told him, you know what? Like, I don't really think that that's really something that I want to do. But if you're still interested, we can still go out and see where things go. I very much left it on like a see where things go tip, because I definitely do not like the idea of being constrained to a person. I definitely do not like the idea of having to limit my dating things. And, I don't like the idea of he can do whatever the fuck he wants, but I can only be with him. Like, that sounds terrible. That sounds like the worst time ever. That does not sound like anything fun or fulfilling or good. So like, it's a no from me, dog. But like, I kept it open, right? And so I'm texting him I'm at the club. Luke just gave me a spanking and I was feeling really, really good. And now with like a lot of the men that I've dealt with, a lot of the doms that I've dealt with, when I tell them that like I've done some, kinky things with other men, they're like excited to hear about it. They really like hearing that I had a good time, like with Soldier, who was the first man I started doing BDSM stuff with. Soldier loves hearing that like I got tied up or I got this or that, and da, 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 da. Like, he loves hearing that. And he's always really encouraging of me to go get out there and do stuff, right? And so I guess I sort of, on the assumption that like most men are like Soldier, I guess I sort of assumed that like he would really want to hear about this. And so look, now I'm in subspace, which means I'm in a very like vulnerable headspace. And I tell him about it, and I'm texting him, and he responds back to me. He responds back to my text about me telling him what I did, and he's like, "Sounds like you get around a lot." And when he said that to me, I almost couldn't believe it. I almost like couldn't process that he just said that to me, because we're in a BDSM community. We are not it's not a very sex negative community. And here he is sort of like shaming me for doing BDSM stuff with him. Now, I will say that I did tell him the whole story. I did tell him, that I did a scene with someone after him, and then I went to this party, and then I went to this other thing, and then we were going to a swinger party and that didn't work, and then I did it. Because I mean, and in retrospect, like yeah, I mean, it like I guess it does make me sound like I'm really risky, but at the same time, I also was in subspace. And I'm not trying to blame it all on that, but if you've ever experienced it, you know exactly what I mean. You just are so suggestible and you just want to like hug and cuddle and like make people happy. And like your mindset is not necessarily on like, okay, this is a clearly dangerous thing. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And I don't have nights like that. Like that night was really random for me. I don't do shit like that. You know what I mean? Like I don't do that. I usually I mean, this is close to when I just moved to LA. So this is also when I was going to a lot of like after hours and stuff. So I guess I was a little at that point doing some stuff like that. But like generally speaking, I tend to not do that. I tend to not jump into things like that, right? And so this was very outside of what I usually do. And to hear him judge me for that, it was just like, wow, like, all right, fuck. And I started to have a conversation with Luke about it. And Luke Luke is interesting. I love Luke, but Luke is definitely the kind of person where like he always try I mean, he always tries to make things in some way, shape, or form about him. He's a very sort of cocky person. He won't say this. He will deny up and down that he's a cocky person, but he is. Um, and he is also the sort of person who sometimes befriends people, um, you know, for befriends people for self promotion type reasons. And I'm very aware of that, but I like Luke as a person, and so I'm definitely like not going to cut my relationship with him because he's a good person. But like sometimes he asks me to do stuff, and I'm like, are you trying to do this because I have some sort of clout, or are you know what I mean? Like I like you as a person. Like we don't have to use each other for clout. I have more than you have anyway. So anyway, um, and so it's like he was like, oh, a lot of people don't like that their partners have played with me and da 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 da. And so he's went on that whole fucking thing, and I was like, yeah, maybe. But one of his partners was there, and I was like in my little subspace sitting on the bench. He was preparing to do something with someone else, and so me and her had a really good conversation about it. And it was a lot of like, yeah, fuck that guy, because and that's when I learned about like the one dom policy that a lot of people have, because I've been at that point I had really been sort of exploring and going through I've been really going through the BDSM community with like this base assumption in the back of my head, that everyone was poly. I don't know why I thought that, but like I felt for some reason that like everyone was poly. Um, and so I definitely this was like a wake up call for me to be like, wait a minute, wow. Um, no, no, because I didn't understand the concept of, most of the people who have these dom sub relationships, you know, she like the woman is like the only person who that person subs for, which I guess in a way makes sense, because I don't know, like it's so for me, I like now I understand that I really do need to have like a more strong connection with someone before I do kinky things with them. Um because I don't know, like it requires a lot of trust. Like when I do scenes with Soldier, they're always amazing. They're always great because we really like each other and we've been around each other for about a year now. And so we know each other in a way that a lot of men who I'm going to meet randomly at a club just do not. And so I get it to some degree, but here's this guy with a harem of people, a harem of women, and he's giving me shit for bottoming for other people. He's giving me shit for bottoming for other people. And I just didn't get it at all. And so I wish that I got fucked a couple of different times with different men in order to justify that sort of reaction. I mean, I don't really wish. I'm totally okay with not getting fucked by anyone I met that night. But you know what I mean? Like, I wish that like I had told him that I was sucking dicks and, you know, this and this and that, but I was just getting spanked by more than someone other than him. And so he really sort of took an issue with that. And decided to slut shame me. And so I was really heated about it. And I decided to write a little piece about it. I wrote a little article. And I mentioned everything I'd gone through. I mentioned all of the sort of experiences that I'd had and my thoughts about the one dom policy and this and that. And I posted it that night and I went to bed. Right? I went to bed and I called it a fucking night. So then I wake up in the morning and I've got like 20 missed calls from Frank. Right? Like 20 missed calls from Frank. He'd seen the post. Frank saw the post and was not happy about it. And he was like, I want you to delete that right now. And I was low key like, yeah, I'm not deleting that. I mean, you said what you fucking said. Because I wrote about like, you're slut shaming me. You were slut shaming me because I had been with more than one person. I'm not deleting shit. I am not deleting shit. Because how fucking dare you slut shame me for the sin of being spanked by more than one person that night? Like, I almost like I couldn't fucking believe it. I was so pissed off about that. How dare you say it looks like you get around a lot? And so I wrote about how he was slut shaming me and shit. And so I got a bunch of calls from him, and then I got a bunch of messages from his sub that I never ended up reading. Never read any of those messages. Um, and so I was pretty like annoyed, and I was like, I'm not deleting this post, like you said what you said. And my thing is like when I wrote about it, I was really vague about who I was talking about. I was not I wasn't specific. I was vague about the event. I was vague about everything. Because I don't want to put anyone out like that. You know, for me, it was just me talking about you know, I was just talking about my experience with having the realization that most people aren't poly and most subs have one dom. Right? What's that? And it was like I thought a pretty good post because like I was really sort of thinking about this new shit, these new experiences that I had. You know, and so I don't know. I felt like it was a good post. I felt really good for writing it. And so to wake up to him yelling at me was real fucking weird. And so I call him on the phone. Girl, it's like in the morning. So I call him on the phone and he's like really upset. He's like, take that post down right now. And I'm like, no. Because I was pissed. How dare you fucking say it looks like you get around a lot. Go fuck yourself. Take that post down right now. And we him and haw. And so what it came down to was in the context of the post, I mentioned the word harem, right? Because everything was pretty vague, but I mentioned the word harem. And so now apparently in the context of this community, right? In the context of this community, he is the only person who calls his group of women a harem. And so even though I was trying to be really vague about it, even though I was trying to not put anyone's business out there really, that one part where I mentioned harem made it kind of obvious who we were talking about. And so I have a thing where if anything I'm publishing is really hurting people or is offending, not offending, let's not say offending. If it's hurting people, you know, I don't want to continue doing that. I had a right to my thoughts, I had a right to my opinions, I had a right to my whole thing, but I'm definitely not I don't like to keep shit like I don't like the fact that his Dom contacted me, not Dom, his sub contacted me and was like upset. I didn't like that, right? I don't know, I never read it, so I don't know what she said, but I didn't like that, right? And so him and I had like some really scary conversations over the phone. Um, he was yelling at me. He was really fucking mad. He said a couple of things. So we went back when we were going back and forth about, you know, whether or not I should keep or delete the whether or not I should keep or delete the posts. He tried to qualify his use of the phrase it seems like you get around a lot, right? He tried to qualify it, and his way of qualifying it was basically to say, what I meant was, your kink is your kink, my kink is my kink, right? And my point blank, he was like, would you judge somebody for wanting to have sex with animals and for wanting to kill people? Would you judge someone for that? For wanting to do that? I was almost wondering, like, what kind of answer does he want to this question? Because my gut fucking reaction is, fuck yes, I would. Yes, the fuck I would. Yes, the fuck I would. Yes, I would judge you for killing people and raping animals. Absolutely. No doubt about it. You know, I'm not even gonna mince words here. I would judge the fuck out of you. And he was like, well, that's not what we do in this community. We don't judge people for that stuff. We don't judge people. We don't judge people. And I was like, interesting. That's what we do in the community, because I feel like that's not everyone. I feel like most of us would have and I was arguing with him about this. I was like, most of us would not support bestiality and murdering people. I think that's a very common normal position to have. Now, of course, he was doing that weird, like, I'm just using this as an example. I'm just using this as an example sort of thing. Don't take it so fucking literally. But I'm like, bitch, that's a really weird example. Like, and because the way he was saying it, it was like he was trying to speak for the community. He was trying to speak for the community, like everyone in the BDSM community. No one judges people for fucking dogs and wanting to kill people, right? And the thing that's so weird about that thought alone is, bitch, I don't know how long you've spent in BDSM, but people are judgmental as fuck about people's kinks and what they're doing and what they're not. You know what I mean? They're judgmental as fuck. So this idea that like you just don't, we just don't do that is so silly. Is so silly. Because at the end of the day, yes the fuck we do. Yes the fuck we do. Yes the fuck we do. We do judge people for that. We do. We always have. That's a really strange thing to say. And so at this point, we're still arguing about this fucking post. And he basically gets, so at the dungeon I go to pretty often,
there's a woman who runs it, and she's kind of like the mother of the place, and this and this and that. And you know, a lot of people have trained under her, and he's trained under her, right? And so, and she owns the venue and is very prolific and well known, right? And so he was like, if you don't remove the post, I'm going to tell her about what you put up there. I'm going to tell her that you made this post and you're not going to be invited back here. And I want to say that at this point, I don't remember if I said this or not, but I was at least thinking it. I was like, oh, you're going to go tell your mommy. You're going to tell your mommy. You're going to tell your mom. Like, you know, and honestly, the way he was talking about it, so like, this was when I was still very new to the community. So like, you know, I definitely was like, I don't know, boy, is this how this is? Like, do these people support fucking dogs, and do they really support killing? Like, do they support this shit? Because like, if that's what they do I really want to be part of this community? Because like, girl, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm kinky, but like, this is not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You know? And so, and I had just started getting in, and he knows that he was like the first person to do stuff with me. So he was really trying to like get me on the outs real quick. And I was low key like, tell her, I don't have to come back to this thing if this is how people fucking are. Right. And so anyway, so I will say that at some point I just deleted the post because like I said, I didn't like that my post was affecting his sub in a negative way. And so I really deleted it for her. I didn't delete it for any other reason. I was just like, I'm going to take it down, whatever, who cares? And so our conversation did end on like a positive note. It did end in a way where it was like, okay, all right. Maybe, you know, we can at least be cordial, because he's always at these events, y'all. He's always at these events. And so it was like, bitch, I don't want to have weird bad blood because we didn't have a personal, you know, connection or whatever. And so we see each other all the time, but we don't really talk to each other. I mean, he's clearly still interested in me, even after all that shit. But I just can't, you know, I just can't. I don't want to risk it. He was really good at what he does. That's the thing that sucks, is that he was a really, really good top. He was a really, really good dom. But at the same time, like, there's a lot there. There's too much there. And I'm just not compatible with that. I'm just not compatible with it. About the whole like, oh, I'm gonna go tell, you know, the woman who runs this dungeon about this sort of thing. But apparently Luke has been in a situation where he had a friend who was raped, and so he decided to report it to, oh my god, is my hair? That's not my hair. Oh my god, is this my hair? I went to jacuzzi last night. It really fucked my hair up. He decided to report it to the woman who runs the place and be like, hey, you know, this guy is a rapist. We should not have him in this community. And apparently the response was to essentially say that like banning someone from the community is discriminatory. It's discrimination. You know, you can't tell people they can't come here. I later found out through some conversations that that guy is a black man, and I think maybe that was a part of it. It was a part of like are we trying to get this black guy out of, I don't know. But like, I don't know. That made me feel really weird about being part of that community, because being in it already, I've already had several conversations with people about, hey, that guy is an abuser. Hey, that guy did this, and that. Hey, that guy, you know. And so I don't know how I feel about being part of a community that like wouldn't want to get known rapists out. But I will say that, like, remember the master that I told you guys, the black guy? He did tell me that like the situation was not as clean cut as I guess Luke had said that it was, or tried to make it seem like it was. So I guess I don't know the whole thing. I don't know all of it, but like it made me a little uncomfortable that people wouldn't do that. But I guess really what I got from that was that she's not going to ban people from the club because someone says that they should be banned and they had an issue with them personally. So that was really a fake threat. And I talked to several people about that, and they're like, yeah, that she would not have banned you, you know. So he was clearly just like, you know, a little boy, you know, getting upset about shit and like, you know what I mean? Like it was 100% like not at all, you know, as scary as he was making it sound. So anyway, that is that long ass story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna go and get some work done. Um, we'll see how that goes. So yeah. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Thanks for showing up.